Adrian Tepes here, and this is another volume of Whatever Happened to the Game, a podcast that running on either Wednesdays or Thursdays each week, describing what happened to your favorite video game franchises. The following is 3 episodes of recommended retro games, so games from the past, recommended, including recommendations for myself as well as a guest of mine, Albeleo, on the show. So we're going to take a look at 3 episodes and nearly 2 hours of fun from this series. I hope you all have a wonderful time enjoying these episodes, and as it premieres, I hope you have a wonderful time reminiscing about the past and learning some things you may not have previously known about these favorite video game franchises. Without much further ado, let us begin. All right, so this is another episode of Whatever Happened to the Game. In for this episode is myself, Adrian Tepes, and Albeleo. So we are going to be responding to a video made by Ten Bond. Now, I found out that he has made a follow-up about a little less than a week ago, but I feel we could still respond to this one. So I'm going to get the video found and set up to go, and we will get going. And this one has
"Are you winning, son?"
here.
We don't have any plans at the moment to do PC. Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Okay. So this is how he starts it. He goes to the cringe 2018 BlizzCon where they said, "Do you have phones?"
Yeah, if this wasn't basically the death knell of everything, Diablo moving forward, I don't know what else would have been.
I mean, Diablo 4 hasn't exactly been doing so great, but these few minutes of BlizzCon is the perfect example of how you do not talk to customers.
Yeah, well, it's wild that they decided to jump onto the mobile bandwagon, even though mobile was already on the decline for popularity at the time.
Right. But then now obviously they have Diablo 4, so we can see how that aged. And it just feels like a lot of what they did in mobile, they're doing with regular AAA games now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't wrap my head around why anybody actually thought that was a good idea. But it really does come down to the Chinese market, which is what they were obviously appealing to.
Right. It's just exactly what they tell you not to do when you're talking to customers. He could have stopped with, okay,
we don't have a Diablo game on mobile at the moment, but this is what we do have. That's what you say. You present an alternative. You don't challenge your audience and say, okay, do you have phones? That's the part where you went really wrong.
Yep. Absolutely brain dead.
Hello there, Captain N. How are you doing? And hello, Chaos. How are you doing as well?
How you guys doing?
So we're going to continue with this, and we'll have pauses occasionally because I feel that Tenbon does some good things in this, and I feel in some ways he could explain it more. So
You can play your tablet too.
Hey look, another video about a market crash. This time there's actual financial repercussions. So, video games. One of the greatest behavioral sinks known to man. You play them, I play them, everyone plays them. And we're all worse off for it.
Okay, video games aren't too bad. You have to moderate how much you use them. That's the key.
Yeah, it's just like anything else. Drugs, alcohol, everything in
Even
moderation.
water can be bad if you have too much water.
Also,
So,
if I know it obviously wasn't him, but if that was a picture of him, I mean, I'm not going to tell him he can't play 8 hours.
I wouldn't do it now because obviously I've got schedules and regular everyday work. I mean, even now I'd probably try to read a book. I've got some books I'm catching up on and finishing because I'm fine. I only read the first 3 Dune novels at first, but now I figured that with the movies out, I'm going to read them all.
Oh, God be with you on that one, dude. There's
Except for
like
the
20
ones
plus
by
novels.
the ones by Frank Herbert, anyways. I'm not so interested in what his son wrote to continue it, but that's me. So we're going to continue.
I gotcha.
It's my belief we are staring down the barrel of another video game crash. And just like the early 80s, PC and Nintendo will be the only survivors. Screen cap every frame of this video for when I'm proven right in 5 to 10 years. A bit of history. It's the early 80s, action stars are popping up left and right, the American economy is booming, and everyone is addicted to cocaine. Outside of the usual entertainment avenues such as Hollywood movies, TV shows, and VHS pornography,
Hey, the 80s was also when we got normal VHS tapes to watch too. Home video was a great thing that we finally got in a mainstream sense. But yeah, I appreciate his little tongue-in-cheek humor there.
It's interesting that he's saying that also Nintendo will be the ones to survive, and I don't disagree because the biggest problem I have with Sony and Microsoft right now for the PlayStation and the Xbox is that they both zero punctuation. Yahtzee discussed this forever ago that it was an arms race to find which one was most irrelevant because everyone was focusing too much on graphics. Meanwhile, Nintendo was making games.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the one thing I will give Nintendo credit for is that they really make it so that you need Nintendo to play Nintendo games. And and to my, experience, that's a great strategy. I mean, it's because PC is a real competition, or at least, it's not so much of a problem. We're going to hear him say more about this later, but PC is, if you want to wait and don't buy a game at launch, PlayStation and Xbox games will end up on PC, like Steam. As I've mentioned multiple times in my recommendations, check out Steam, check out GOG. Those games will end up there. If you're willing to wait months to a year after the game is launched. And we'll get into why you don't buy games at launch nowadays. It's just going to bring that up.
Was a new and upcoming visual medium that put you, the consumer, in control. That's right, assassinating the present video games. With this new confangled technology, the power to control your entertainment was a button push away. Why, think of all the amazing things you can create. Worlds of wonder, immersive action previously unexplored, creativity unbound by physical limitations. The world of video games in the very late 70s to early 80s can be described with one eloquent phrase.
What a piece of fucking dog shit.
You see, quality control had yet to be in.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Video
yeah,
game nerd.
yeah. AVGN. He's not exactly wrong. I mean, what they had at that time was what they had, but not all of them held up.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel that it was something where it was new and then they just oversaturated it. Oh, what's this comment here? Yeah, that's pretty much a lot of what Nintendo did, Chaos. They really made sure to use quality as how they would compete. They really made it their slogan. They made it what they put in their ads, in the early 80s. And you can look down some of their Nintendo game advertisements on YouTube and you can see, hey, we're all about quality. You should buy our games because they are quality. So that's what Nintendo did. Yeah, it's exactly what they did. Anything else, Albeleo?
Well, just adding on to Chaos, I mean, like comparatively, the Nintendo or the Famicom, however you want to view it, compared to what
Right.
the Atari was putting out, like it's a night and day difference.
Yeah, I mean they really advertised. They really put effort into advertising, getting the slogan down. And Atari, I mean, they're okay, but I just don't recall much advertisement. And obviously, Nintendo really picked up in the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, people probably don't know as much about the Famicom PC, but the NES, yeah, it was there. So now he's going to tell us all these video game consoles you probably don't know about.
Invented, and we were all suffering for it. In today's market, you have the big four. Three. Only 3 companies really have a console platform of note. In order to get your game on 1, 2, or all 3, it's subject to quality control. Usually. However, back in the day, the development company usually also made their own consoles. On top of that, their games were entirely exclusive to their own consoles. Now, this isn't too far off from today. If you want to play Halo, you get an Xbox or a PC. If you want to play Last of Us, you get a PlayStation. If you want to play Mario, you get a Nintendo. However, due to only 3 major companies...
I noticed he really jumped out of that one. And I'm probably going to ask him like why he doesn't mention why he cut off at emulate.
Well, Japan, you might know, but for those who don't, Japan does not have copyright laws like we do. So
Right.
the reason why Nintendo cracks down as hard as they can is because legally they are able to. Because
Right.
anytime you see something that isn't officially licensed, that's illegal.
Right. Right.
They don't care. And it's like if you are not, like when I mentioned before, it's like when we were doing the Smash tournaments, the biggest problem was trying to get Nintendo to acknowledge and say, yes, you're allowed to. Because otherwise they would get shut down. And it didn't matter how big the fandom was, Nintendo would crack down on it. And this was a major problem for tournaments like this.
I remember that because there were legal issues. Because technically, as I found out, according to copyright, like video games are only meant to be for a certain size audience, and this is for video as well. Like technically, if you ever remember, like taking the coach bus on a school trip and watching videos on that was technically like not in compliance with copyrights because apparently, and I found this out recently, is that video games or home video are only meant to be seen by so large of an audience. Now, it isn't always necessarily enforced, obviously, but it is. So I can see where Nintendo was going, but it's kind of ridiculous how poorly or inconsistently they enforce that.
The other thing I forgot to add was fair use. That was something I forgot.
Right. But the good news is, and it's totally legal, is that you can emulate older Nintendo games on the Switch. I'm kind of sad that the Wii store didn't stay forever, but it is what it is.
Yeah, just as a quick side note, there was a suggestion I saw where all Nintendo had to do was basically hire on the emulator teams for specific emulation, and then they would just be able to put everything up.
Oh, yeah.
Like
I
that would
mean,
be that would solve literally every problem Nintendo has had for the last 30 years about fair use. Like if they had that one I totally don't have called this SNES 9X. So, if they had something like that, and then they just front loaded every single game, and then had teams working on translations, they could put literally hundreds of retro games on just one program like that, and no one would ever complain about it. Because
oh,
who wouldn't pay like 20 or $25 a year to just have access to hundreds and hundreds of games?
I mean, that's the gimmick right now. I mean, that's EA do what EA is doing with the EA app, and I'm a little annoyed by it. But they're just saying, hey, you can play all our old games on the EA app for a subscription fee every month,
Mhm.
and it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, I can just go to the Switch store when I get a Switch, which I think I'm finally going to go get a Nintendo Switch at this point.
Yeah,
Later this year, like, because just of what the Nintendo Switch is, it's a hybrid between portable and a regular console, and it emulates older Nintendo and even Sega Genesis games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mine's just been collecting dust because I barely ever use it. I barely use anything else at this point besides PC because I'm working all so often.
All right, I'm going to take some time off near the end of this year. I mean, you were off creating for a while, and I have been at times, but sometimes I just need to just be off of it to get my creative thinking going. And yeah, so Chaos, yeah, copyright applies to a limited audience size. So if you have a home video, according to copyright law, you're only supposed to be showing it to people in a room on a specific television set. They don't consistently enforce that rule for home video or video games, but that's what it is. So if you're ever worried about selective enforcement of copyright laws, that's what the case is. You're only supposed to be showing home video or a video game to people in the same room as you are playing the video. That is the rule.
Yeah, I don't know enough about copyright law, and I really should try to like dig into it and break it down like I've done, like how theaters make money, for example, because the actual technical law is so wild that it's like every one of us who recorded a movie on TV, like Terminator on TBS, back to
Right.
you, like any of that, every one of us was a pirating monster, and every one of us should be in jail. Like it's wild how different everything is.
Right. I mean,
Anyway.
I never sold anything. I usually did use the VCR for TV shows because obviously
Yeah.
it's not a thing anymore. But in the early 2000s, when I was a kid, I'd have chores to do on Saturdays. I've had other things like going on a camping trip on Saturday, so I'd have the VCR program to record whatever was on the TV on a specific network for an hour or two while I was gone and away from home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I watched TV episodes that I wouldn't catch because I was out doing something else. But now we don't really think of that because we have streaming where you can just watch it anytime and you won't get interrupted.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we could get lost for a little longer, but we'll go for a little bit in this video until the next pause.
Making consoles today. It's not nearly as saturated as it was back in the day. Here's a list of every console in the US from the late 70s until the crash. Fairchild Channel F, RCA Studio 2, Atari 2600,
you called it.
Bali
Yeah.
Astrocade, APF-MP 100, Champion 2711, Interton VC 4000, Magnavox Odyssey 2, APF Imagination Machine, Intellivision, Arcadia 2000, ColecoVision, Atari 5200, Vectrex.
So he just went through all of the that was pretty much all the consoles that you never heard about from 1977 until early 80s.
Wow. More than I thought.
More than I thought too. I mean, I didn't find out about a lot of these consoles even from the 90s, like Sega having the 68,000X, until I started, doing some extra research on game franchises.
Real quick, humor me. Go back to the 68,000X.
68,000X. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll pull that up on my browser.
Sure. I'm just curious because I know he jumped through them fairly quickly, and I didn't take everything in that I should have. I just want to see if it was 4 digits or 5.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so I'm going to share.
Oh no, it is 5. Okay, I see it. Okay,
X68,000. So I got it wrong, but
okay,
yeah.
it is 5 digits. That's what I wanted to check. I just looked it up myself too, because I was like, wait, was that 4?
Yeah, 68,000. A lot of numbers there, a lot of digits. So
That's 14 consoles, all by different companies, each with their own library of games, and little to no cross-compatibility. That would be like today having to own a separate console for Halo, Grand Theft Auto, Batman, Call of Duty, Battlefield. Wait. No, scratch that. It's exactly the same. We have to have a launcher for EA, Ubisoft, Rockstar, Epic Games, Battle.net.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I mentioned earlier with the EA app. It annoys me. And I'm not buying new EA games just because they're going to play game like ads in the middle of your game. Like, really?
Yeah, there's a conversation to be had about like physical media mattering. Like obviously it does, and it frustrates me when people say it doesn't. However, the extreme on the other end of too much becomes a problem. Like I underneath my like TV, I have shelves and everything, and the whole top row of this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 consoles, 7 consoles. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah,
5, 6,
it's
7
believable.
consoles, and I can't even fit the other two, the other one that I have, which is the Switch, which is on a shelf above it. And then to have all of the space and everything being taken up, but that same space has to be taken up even on your hard drive. It's like, as he showed, Epic Games, Battle.net, it gets really bad. And then tack on how one of the current standards for the gaming industry is that nobody's allowed to really compress their games anymore.
No, it's ridiculous. It's a huge amount of storage. And this is one of the things I liked about Nintendo is they managed somehow to achieve small, limited amounts of data on their cartridge systems, whether it was the SNES, especially with Nintendo 64. They kept it down to like a maximum of 25 megabytes. So think of that. So there was a Resident Evil 2 released for Nintendo 64 that was 25 megabytes somehow.
Yeah, the most hated version.
Yeah. But somehow it's 25 megabytes when the PlayStation version of Resident Evil 2 is multiple CDs. And the other thing too is just, with aside from a bypass, you essentially with a lot of these games you need to be on the internet to get it, and that's not even going into the kind of streaming wannabe attempt called cloud gaming.
Agreed. Not to mention that also goes into, how we don't actually own anything that we purchase anymore.
Right.
Also frustrates me.
I did a free trial of the Xbox cloud gaming, and most of what I used it for was the fact that Master Chief Collection on Steam wasn't working for me at the time. So I used cloud gaming to essentially finish the game that I was having problems with running on Steam. With the new update, no, it works better, but that's what I used it for. But cloud gaming, that takes a lot of internet connection bandwidth to run that. Yes, Chaos, I despise the new EA app too. They even have to put an EA app within Steam, and the issue I have with Steam is that there sometimes can be problems if you have another app. It happened earlier with Ubisoft, and you have to run the Ubisoft app for Assassin's Creed games that you play on Steam, except for the first one. So you have to run an additional Ubisoft app or an additional EA app within Steam.
Ugh.
But for that's for newer games, not the older ones.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
History sure does rhyme. Hopefully this is painting a vivid picture of why the market crashed. Not only were you getting 14 consoles over the course of only 6 years, each one had its own library only playable on itself. And to add insult to injury, the games themselves were, well,
What a piece of fucking dog shit.
the crash would result in pretty much all
AVGN can't avoid making a meme without him.
of these companies going out of business. Out of all the American brands, Mattel, Atari, and RCA are the only ones left that exist in any sort of fashion, and they sure as hell don't make video games or consoles anymore. Well, technically Atari still makes games only because Activision was founded by one of the members of Atari. It wouldn't be until Nintendo, a
interesting.
toy company exclusive to Japan at the time, came in clutch with the NES and saved the video game market single-handedly.
So the only part he tends to come up a little bit short was that the Sega Master System was also released shortly after that. But the Sega Genesis is much more famous than the Sega Master, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Unformed. How you doing, buddy?
Unformed, hey. Nintendo tends to be a lead runner for optimizing games now, since it's quite amazing what they get Switch to run.
I agree. It blows my mind that despite all of the problems I have with the game, like Tears of the Kingdom, that runs on this glorified tablet.
Yeah, I like the fact that Nintendo made hybridized the whole console thing. So it's both a portable or you can use it as a regular console. I feel that gets a good niche. And as I mentioned earlier in the stream, Switch is a good thing because it emulates older Nintendo games and even Sega games. So it's a good deal.
Really goes to show how so many games nowadays are made with where optimization is not a priority. Like if you've ever played, like if any of you guys or you have played Warhammer's Darktide,
Oh,
I want to rip my hair out every time that game loads up. I haven't played it for a while, but I die a little inside every time I think about every single one of these things could have far fewer polygons. They could optimize that. They could gut that game and make it run so much better. And it drives me nuts that a game like Doom 4 looked as fantastic as it did and never lagged, not once, despite how intense the combat would get. But you can't even turn on Darktide without your computer chugging like it's been smoking cigarettes for 50 years.
Oh yeah, and a lot of these games have specific issues with the graphics settings. I mean, if you are in on the Fallout 4 drama from Bethesda back in 2015, one of the biggest things people were wondering was that even on high performing PCs, it was lagging just because of some stupid preferences called God rays in the game. And if you shut those off, the game could run pretty smooth, even on a lower performance PC. But just that thing that Bethesda hadn't figured out in the terms of their own graphics processing lagged the game. And I'm thinking that Warhammer 40,000 Darktide is having a similar issue.
Probably lighting and shadow, well, lighting in general, I suppose, but it's lighting and shadow have always been harsh on computers.
Oh, always. I remember when Doom 3 was initially released, and this is 2004, but even back then, back at the time, Doom 3 was groundbreaking in terms of how they handled shadows and the light, but a lot of processors at the time, it was taxing on them.
Oh yeah, I remember that very well.
But yeah, so the one thing he kind of forgot here is that Sega Master System was released. Let me go make sure I get the year right here. Sega Master System.
Yeah, because the Sega came out in competition with the NES, and then the Super Nintendo was the response to the Sega.
Okay, Sega Master System. So it was 1986, so 1 year after NES, and that, and in Japan it's 1985, so it's the same year but just a few months later. So,
Yeah, well, that's Japan. Here, for us here, it was 85
yeah.
for the NES.
Yeah, but Sega Master was the year after NES. It just wasn't as popular as Genesis was during the thing. Yeah, Chaos, there was an RCA game console, but they got almost completely destroyed by the video game console part.
Mm-hmm.
There were some parts where RCA was involved in development, such as the Lucasfilm-based games of the 90s, such as Indiana Jones and Star Wars, but they got destroyed in terms of being a console maker completely. But yeah, a lot of these games, and you'll find out with Nintendo too, a lot of these video game consoles started as just regular toy companies. So I'm going to continue right from here, if that's all right.
Candidly. Yeah, Atari was still kicking, but their slow and painful death was happening. With a semblance of quality control, Nintendo was able to make an environment of healthy consumer practices.
Yeah.
At least back then. If it didn't have the Nintendo seal of quality, you had an idea that you might not be getting the best product in the world. It allowed the consumers to make an informed decision on how to spend their money.
I hate
it wouldn't be
LJN.
until about...
Screw them and every game they made.
Which one?
LJN. They are infamous for making like the worst games on the Nintendo. They made, oh god, let's see,
Maximum Carnage. That was LJN.
Jaws, Alien 3. Karate Kid. Just games that made you want to punch a nun just out of frustration. Like, it's just.
Oh my. Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
let's just say these games got LJN, the ones that I bothered with on Super NES. They're just tedious and highly repetitive.
Yeah.
2 years later, a challenger to the throne would appear. Sega. In other words, Nintendo, but edgier.
So yeah, as you mentioned earlier, Sega Master System was available 1 year after Nintendo, not 2, but it's the Sega Genesis where it started selling quite a bit more than the Master System did.
Yeah, because everyone was like, ooh, a blue rodent.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, in sneakers.
Which is funny because you play Sonic games on Nintendo now.
Nintendo won the war.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sure, you had other consoles in the background, but that's the thing. They were in the background. No one, and I mean no one, cared about LJN Video Art, Video Smarts, Atari 7600, Atari XEGS, Action Max, Viewmaster Interactive Vision, TurboGrafx 16, so on and so forth.
So before I watched this, the only one I was aware of was the buttons, the one with the 4 different animal face buttons, because that was something I saw at a yard sale. But I mean, yeah, another console by Sega, but obviously no one cares about it. Did you recognize any of those or no?
Well, the TurboGrafx, because that'd be Rondo of Blood.
Right, the TurboGrafx X 68,000, not 68,000X PC, yeah. But yeah.
Sega and Nintendo would be the major players until 1994, when Sony, ironically after a raw deal with Nintendo, decided to upset the balance and drop the PlayStation. This console alone shook the market so hard it killed Sega only
Yeah.
2 years
Yeah.
later.
Not exactly, but yeah, the Dreamcast was the end of Sega as a console maker.
Yeah, for a short while there was Sega with the Genesis, Nintendo, GameCube, Xbox, and then the Sony PlayStation, and the four nations lived in harmony.
until the Xbox attacked.
Yeah, basically.
At least as a console manufacturer. After this, it wouldn't be until 2001 that a third competitor would enter the ring, with Microsoft introducing the Xbox. And this is how it's been for the last 20 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
Although Sony and Microsoft don't make as many video games as they used to, or at least the rate at which they used to.
Mm-hmm.
I
Well,
was shocked. I mean, you heard about how many they've had in the past year, right? How many releases Xbox has had?
I haven't. The only thing I've caught recently was a clip from the Side Scrollers podcast.
Yeah,
And they were
I think you
talking.
saw
There
the
was
same one.
Yeah, where I don't know because what I saw was this clip about like the Gamer Awards, and they were making some claim that like video games have never sold at a higher rate or as much as they have because like this year was like a record year, and I'm like I don't believe that.
They it's single digits per year that Xbox and PlayStation are releasing.
Mhm.
Single digits. I mean, it feels like they're really banking on and those are original game releases. This isn't including their remakes that they're releasing.
Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, we've never had a better time for finding and playing old games than right now. Literally.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was surprised from that Side Scrollers episode that it's single digits released for consoles. I mean, if you look back at Generation 6 or Generation 5, it was dozens per year. Multiples of that.
Well, you have the complexity of newer game engines. You have the amount of content that's put in, which, while repetitive, it takes a long time to get it all coded in.
Right.
You know, when you have a game like Baldur's Gate 3, which takes these guys years to make, one chapter, because everything has to be handcrafted. That's the
Right.
comparison. It's not copy paste like something like World of Warcraft where they could just, every 2 years, new expansion.
Right. Or Call of Duty where they have the engine already. They have the basic engine, so they have the engine with which they can build the assets and maybe put a new coat of paint on it so that it looks different.
Exactly. There was a lot more recycling, which the recycling was never really the problem. It was just the repetition of what came out because so few of the Call of Duty games are truly unique from each other because they're outside of like technical differences, there's a few inclusions of newer details.
Right.
They're basically the same. Whereas you had to people are like, well, we need a whole new engine to build this game that I have in mind. It's like, okay, we'll build it. And it's like, all right, well, that's going to cost, an arm, a leg, your firstborn, and probably half the company. You look at games like Suicide Squad.
Right. I'll be right back. I'm going to just play some comments here.
Sure.
Here. Hello there. Hello there. Okay, no. Okay, I'm fine for now. So yeah, going back to, and we're going to continue this, but just going into Generation 5 or Generation 6, you had many different things. I mean, PlayStation had Croc, they had Crash Bandicoot, they had Twisted Metal, they had, and I could keep listing these off, but they had many more series of games running all at the same time, released exclusively to the Nintendo GameCube, PS2, and Xbox. And same thing with the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, or Nintendo Wii. But now it's single digits for each of these consoles in terms of per year. But to be fair, like you said earlier, it's the games back in the N64, Sony PlayStation, or going into the GameCube and so on were generally less complicated and less data crunching when it came to making them. All right, so continue at this point.
Stadia isn't real.
Well, no, it isn't. It's the game streaming service that died.
He's not wrong.
I mean, that's one of the biggest cases of refunds being demanded for a streaming games service.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those who don't know, Stadia was Google's attempt to create a video game version of Netflix, and it totally bombed. Like, it totally undersold. But the idea was you could live stream with a huge amount of internet bandwidth and play games that way.
I don't really have anything to add. I'm just stunned by how bad Stadia went.
Oh, it did. I mean, the problem is that it was Google, so Google doesn't really have an actual console that they make for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Xbox and PlayStation do, and even with Xbox, I'm not sure about how financially Xbox cloud gaming works. I mean, I did a trial for a month with them just to play Halo, like I mentioned earlier, but
yeah,
I'm not. It'd be tough to think about how you would be profitable with streaming games, and plus the fact that games might not be as good for multiplayer because you're using a lot of internet bandwidth to run Xbox 360 or Xbox Series S quality on your games.
Mm-hmm. Everybody forgot the Stadia was a thing, unformed.
Right.
Everybody.
So now what we have is Xbox cloud gaming, and the way I see it, in my opinion, is that it's a glorified game demo disc, like they used to do for PS2.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to continue with this one here.
History lesson over. Now time to come to the abysmal present.
Yeah, that was a pretty quick flash, or montage.
I did catch a good number of them, and I don't necessarily disagree because there is there is a sort of, I suppose, a sort of hot take that we are to blame for so much of what's been going on with the video game industry. Because when you have people that, when you have such a rabid fan base that constantly demands more and more and more because you've allowed the bar to lower continuously. When you have the standard, like when they were recycling engines and just making games using them,
Right.
what you would, you were able to crank out a massive number of games in a very short amount of time. And
Right.
by doing this, you set the standard of what can be achieved. So when the next year has more, let's say, people are like, oh, cool, we're going to get more. But then when you have fewer, it creates pushback. And because of obviously so many elements that come into this, like inflation or when a state increases its minimum wage, all of these things, when all of these extra factors get taken into account, it's like, well, this is why we're still paying $60 or $70 for a full game that's incomplete, because they have investors and they have to, developers have to please them.
Right.
They're trying to make the game on time for that reason, but they also need the extra time to be able to please us. So the game comes out unfinished, and and we're paying full price for it. It's like all of these problems happen for numerous reasons that most people don't pay attention to, and a lot of it is because we as the audience, as the fandoms, pushed game companies to do this. So they have to seek out other ways to make the games for cheaper in order to keep up with time. There are so many things. It's impossible to go through in one of your stream sessions.
Yeah,
basically.
it is. I know we're kind of limited for time, but that's true. I mean, the demand helps do it, and part of it is just some people like myself have a limited amount of time that I play games. Like
Yeah.
schedule. If you're an adult, you have the schedule, or you've got your job, you've got kids, maybe. Like if you happen to be me, and you have maybe you have a class or something, and maybe your spouse needs attention, like in my case. But that's how it works. So to me, it's mostly back cataloging and going back to games that I haven't played before, and sometimes if there's so many in a series, I just lose interest in it because I'm not going to reach all of them. I mean, I enjoy playing Call of Duty or with my friends, but I didn't really care which Call of Duty it was. It was just an event that we had. We hung out in the room at their house at a party, and we played Call of Duty together. That's how it worked.
Yep.
More or less. But yeah, we're gonna go
You
forward a
there,
little bit.
yes, you, lowly peasant whose dopamine receptors are too blown out to wait 3 to 4 years for a product. Would you like to pre-order a 1/4 finished game? Would you like day one patches the same size or bigger than the game itself? Would you like the same game, resold to you every year with a marginally improved set of graphics and polygon count? Do you enjoy buying in-game currencies with real money for a game you already paid $60 to $70 for?
Yes. The consoles learned the wrong lesson from the mobile gaming market. By far.
Yeah. Well, the model. There was an old mission. Like if you or anybody here watching ever gets a chance, look up EA's old mission statement. It is a night and day difference between the passion and quality they initially set out to do versus the money hungry standard of the industry today. It's wild how different it is. And it's frustrating because like the major companies obviously had to do it in order to
right,
make the profits necessary, but then
and
greed
to keep up with
really set in.
competition. Keeping up with competition as well.
Yeah, but too many like greedy, like corrupt kind of standards were set in. I mean, like this is what happened with World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft got to Wrath of the Lich King, and then they introduced the Celestial Steed, which was a special mount you could buy for the game. Well, that Celestial Steed took off, became one of the most popular things ever, and then everybody not only bought that, they bought every single mount or pet or anything that they could outside of the game to play in the game. It was no longer about making a big grand adventure. Now it's all front loaded with all the crap they can make money off of on the side. And it's because it works. This is what happened. Far too many people. I hope you haven't experienced it, but like, giving your kid a tablet and then they end up buying a ton of things that you didn't want them to.
Oh, well, like we did, and we have kids mode, but it's but at the same time, I'm getting my kids to play the Nintendo Wii with me. Honestly,
nice.
We're playing in the same room, we're playing together, and we have complete games on discs in that console. Full games.
Yeah.
I know we're gonna go longer without stopping, but he's gonna show one mistake he made. It's a small mistake.
Okay.
He shows Fallout New Vegas, and that was an early example of an incomplete game at launch. Very buggy. The worst in terms of bugs was the PlayStation 3 version. So I'm gonna stop stalling here and continue with his video.
Do you enjoy 6-hour guided experiences with empty open worlds and prologues that last more than 2 hours so you can't get that Steam refund? Well, do I have good news for you. Welcome to the modern video game market.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Turns out, games peaked in the 7th generation, and it's all been downhill from there. Remember when games came out in a finished state? Day one? Remember when all features were available at the start? Remember when game-breaking bugs weren't intentional? Well, Bethesda doesn't know anything about that last part. When people like me say, games were better back then, we legitimately aren't wearing nostalgia glasses. We actually got products that were finished and ready to be played. I feel sorry for the newer generation, only really knowing broken, crumbling frameworks of what could have been decent games. After the first video game crash, barely finished, bugged-out games were usually only made by obscure developers or by a bunch of laughing, joking numbnuts. These days, the titans of the industry, EA, Ubisoft, Activision, and others, have become the very trash they used to be set apart from. Remember when CDPR said Cyberpunk would come when it was ready? And then Microsoft showed us how loud money talks? It still hurts. See, in the vain and hollow pursuit of quick money, game studios have decided that it's entirely acceptable to put out software that's generously 40% done. Don't worry, you can pre-order the $200 collector's edition that comes with some cheap plastic injection molded figurines and one season pass. What a deal! This kind of behavior would have made you go bankrupt 10 years ago. But now they get away with it day and night. And to be honest, it's not actually entirely the studio's fault.
Right. So we got a little bit ahead of how he was going to say it's on the consumers, but yeah,
Yep.
this is normal that we get a game that's incomplete and they leave it to the modders to essentially finish it.
Mhm.
That's why they have the nickname of Bugthesda for Bethesda.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, if there's a game I recommend, I'd say, you can check out the older Elder Scrolls games for better days that Bethesda had. They're on GOG.com. They've even got modified versions of Daggerfall, which is their second game, and it's made to run like it's Morrowind or Oblivion in terms of it running more fluid, more higher frame rate, higher resolutions. So I'll put a link to GOG.com in the description when we're done. But yeah. They more or less.
And I'm having a blast with Fallout 1 right now.
Oh yeah, and that's on GOG.com as well. I missed your most recent one, I think, but it was looking pretty good.
Yeah, the only complaint I have is that I need a fucking magnifying glass to be able to play the game. But besides that, I mean, Fallout 1 is solid so far. I'm learning more and having fun with it.
Yeah, Chaos. Yeah, that's the way I usually do it. I go on GOG, and GOG.com sells the GOTY. They sell you the full version of the game with all the DLCs included. You don't even need to mod it. That's how I got Oblivion. That's how I got Morrowind, and I avoided a lot of the issues that happened on launch.
Some of the blame goes on the players. See, you and me were too bored to wait 2 to 4 years it takes to make a good game, and demanded it today. Studios heard us, and they did what any other good profit-driven company would do. They filled that market demand. Kind of like how OnlyFans exists because there's a market willing to buy it. See, in our demand for non-stop entertainment, we forgot about quality over quantity. And that's why Madden, FIFA, and Forza even exist. That's why the MCU exists. That's why Call of Duty comes out every year for the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Why Assassin's Creed sucks. That's why Far Cry sucks.
So the film industry does the exact same thing. Really cheap horror movies that are made to make a profit. Because like with I don't know how the tax is handled for video games because their costs are so much more, so much more on
Complex,
average.
yeah.
And uh, the average horror movie, because their budgets are pitiful,
They're
5,
low.
8,
Yeah, they're
$10
really
million
low.
dollars, they actually are so low that even if the movie fails financially, you can write it off on your taxes, because
Right.
tax write-offs in Hollywood, just as a comparison again, they can go upwards of like $15 million. So you can make a movie effectively for free, and
Yeah.
everything after that is total profit, which is wild to me. So when the video game industry does something similar, I'm curious what the bracket, what the thresholds are for tax write-offs and whatnot, because if Suicide Squad right now failed and it's like 200
Oh,
million
yeah.
lost, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, how much of that could be written off? How much of that
Yeah.
could be mitigated?
Right.
And this
And
is why the recycled games came out, because Call of Duty sold well. All right, same engine, put it out, people will buy it. It's a safe bet, and there's nothing wrong with a safe bet. I mean, the sports games, 2K, NFL, all of it.
yeah. And going back to what you mentioned about movies, they're essentially putting movies in theaters now that would have been direct to video like 20 years ago. They would have
Mhm.
been. Because that's the way it was for horror series or even like Disney sequels. Although to be fair to the Disney sequels, their direct to video sequels of their animated films were usually an audition for new animators and to prove themselves to Disney that they should be doing bigger works. But that's the way it
Agreed.
usually used to go. Is that if there were so many sequels to something in terms of video, it usually ended up being direct to home video.
Yep.
More or less. So, yeah, we'll continue this and work on finishing this
That's
one.
why Halo died.
Mhm.
No, wait, scratch that. 343 had years between each entry and still screwed it up.
Yeah, pretty
I'm not
much.
coming with you this time.
What?
I need to stay here. I only held enough back to get you off the ship.
No. That's not... We go together. She stayed behind.
It's already done.
I am not leaving you here. She stayed behind.
An example of inconsistency between installments in the Halo series, right here.
Yep.
John. I've waited so long to do that. No.
Cortana, please. She stayed behind.
Sony and Microsoft in this, because they're showing the most signs of not lasting through this next crash. Now, Microsoft still has its PC market to fall back on when Xbox inevitably becomes PC Lite for people who use laptops they can't game on. Sony doesn't have that market. If people are unwilling to make a free PSN account for Helldivers 2, myself being a part of that crowd, that does not bode well for this company. Sony is acquiring fewer and fewer reasons for people to get a PlayStation all the time. There is literally no exclusives on the PlayStation that I care enough to buy a console specifically
I will be
for.
right back.
Yeah, so do I. Like I said, it's the shocking thing I read when I listened to Side Scrollers and I looked it up, and it's that Xbox and PlayStation aren't releasing exclusives to the extent that they used to be. And Unformed, you should watch Ray Civic's video. I'll list that Unformed. I'll put a list on that one. It could be a future response video right there. We'll record it if we can't do it within a time limit, okay? So I'll list it Unformed. Thanks. Have you seen this one, Albeleo? Making a game last forever? Oh. Oh, okay. So I'll continue. Albelio's lost his audio for a minute. I hope he fixes it.
Bloodborne is the only exclusive I even remotely want to play, and I'm not getting a PS4 just for that. It's not a console seller for me. Neither is The Last of Us. I already have my story-driven game. And what's better is that it isn't just a movie disguised as a walking simulator. It's called Halo, and it lives on PC now. See, Nintendo learned from the 80s how to maintain relevance in the gaming world. Make your first-party games must-haves, and make them only available through your consoles.
Okay, Albeleo, I'm going to try and see if you can get yourself back in using the link. Okay, so I'm going to just do a quick remove and then see if you can get back in here. Okay, so, oh yeah, and GOG restored a lot of things. I really like that part about them.
Or emulators. PC will never die. That's what games are made on anyways. Without PC, you don't have video games to begin with. See, if I want to play an Xbox game, I can just play it on PC. If I want to play a PlayStation game, well, usually I don't care to, or I just need to wait a year for the Ultimate Edition to come to PC. If I want to play a Nintendo game, I just emulate it. Well, since there's no Switch emulator right now, I get a Switch. Funny enough, anyone who has bought an Xbox Series X or S could have just saved up an extra $200 to $300 and built a fairly competent gaming rig. Then guess what? You have access to nearly every PC game in history. You have a good portion of Xbox's library. You have nearly all of Nintendo's library up until the Switch. You have an ever-growing library of Sony games. Invest in PC now. You'll be less burned by the second crash. I got out of the console climate a few years after Xbox One, and I never looked back. Also, side tangent, cheating in multiplayer, unless something is done about it, it'll probably kill multiplayer as a whole. Which, if that doesn't destroy the market itself due to not being able to justify live service games, could lead to a resurgence of single-player games. Actually, on second thought, accelerate the cheating problem. There are no downsides to this.
So that's how we ended it.
All right, so what was that little bit that I missed?
So the part...
Or just turn into a robot. Okay.
He went into where we mentioned earlier, where there's only like so many games coming out, and how he could have mentioned more on some of the recent video game crashes, because there's been at least several that I can think of, including Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. But the way it's usually been in terms of accounting is that if a company gets big enough, they will have a tendency to become more likely to overspend on a project that will not pay off. So that's what he seems to be implying, is that they will overspend. Is that the major ones are more so Sony and Microsoft or Xbox have this tendency, and they will probably overspend on big video game projects that could crash possibly sooner than Nintendo. And how do you feel about that point?
I agree because of the disconnect with people who run businesses today. Just it's a general practice that isn't good. You'll have so many companies that will throw as much money as they can at a problem in the hopes that it fixes it without allowing for the additional time necessary or anything else that can be done to make it better. Take, for example, whenever a movie has to do a bunch of reshoots, it's like they probably could have just fixed it in the at the time.
Right.
But then you have a bunch of people who sit down, watch the movie, and instead of watching the film in their test screenings, among the executives and whatnot, when they watch a film, they'll look at it and they'll ask their analyst, "What do you think?" And they won't look at it from the point of view of an audience member. They look at it, black and white numbers, and then they will force reshoots or anything of the nature. And when it comes to making video games, it's not much different. You'll have people that come in, and you're not. I mean, I don't see how you really could get, say, the CEO of Bethesda actually, or I don't know, someone who actually cares about games. The people at Nintendo, like, they'll sit down and play the games.
Right.
They'll test it out. They'll give their input, because many of the people within Nintendo actually made games before they got to the higher ranks. So they actually have the experience. It's sort of like what Elon Musk said. It's like the people who design, like the people who run Boeing should also learn how to design a plane.
Right.
Because he knows how to design rocket ships. He went through all of that. He does this. He is a part of those teams. And when you don't have that kind of connection, or, even base knowledge at the higher ups, the best thing anybody can do, not that they always have the time to do it, mind you, I understand that, but the majority of the time, these suits just think they can throw money at a situation and hope these people can fix it, or God forbid they hire someone else who's not related to the conversation, or like the video game or the project in general, and everything gets completely twisted around, and it's like, ugh, great. So
Right.
there's a lot of complications and problems with it, and I agree.
Yeah, I do feel that some moves that Nintendo has had, and I know that the flop of the Wii U was a while, but it felt that they handled it in a fairly responsible manner. Deciding to cut pay where they could, because they didn't want to lose their developers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I do feel that the Switch is a good way of learning from what happened with the Wii U. And we'll talk a little bit more about what our thoughts on this video next time, at the beginning of the next episode on video game adaptations. But in the meantime, we've got our other things on our schedules. But next week, we'll be off for Independence Day, big holiday. I've got things, I at the very least have things I'm going to be doing that week. But the week after, we'll be back on Wednesday to talk about video game adaptations. So it should be pretty good. All right.
So that will be the 11th of July for anyone who. I'm sorry. We're doing it Wednesday, right? So
yeah.
So the 10th of July. My bad. So 10th of July for anyone who's curious. That's when we'll go live.
All right. So see you then, July 10th, and we'll be signing off.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
All right. This is another episode of Whatever Happened to the Game. Today we're talking about how they have brought some video games into film or television. I guess you'd say internet streaming, if that's the technical way of saying it. For some of them. Right, Albeleo? And this is Albeleo. Yeah. So here I am from eastern Pennsylvania, and I believe you're coming in from Michigan, right?
No, Illinois.
Illinois, okay.
Yep.
I don't know why I thought Michigan. Anyways.
That's okay.
So we're getting started. We're going to talk about and be asking each other questions, because we haven't seen the same series, but so we're going to be asking each other questions about it as part of this live stream. So it's going to be pretty interesting, and First, before we get fully into it, we recommend StreamYard. It's inexpensive, easy to use. You can do there's so much you can do on the most basic membership here. So as of right now, I can do up to 5 guests on a live stream. You can do up to 10 if you get a premium membership. But this is the most basic membership I'm using right here, and it can do quite a bit. It does quite a bit more on your PC than it does on a phone, because you can use it on a phone as well. So without much of that, after this recommendation, we're going to get started. These are our recent works. I enjoyed your Godzilla -1 review the most. I'll take some time and take a look at the Inside Out one. And I've just done a monster file, and I recommended some games myself. So that's the recommended games has been out for some time. But those are our recent works. So this is something I figured I'd show on our as we start here. So, all right. So I'm going to be asking you for a little description here, Albeleo, about Five Nights at Freddy's, because they finally made a movie about it.
Mm-hmm. So basically, Five Nights at Freddy's itself, as a franchise, is haunted Chuck E. Cheese. Basically, that's really all it is. The developer Scott Cawthon originally was making all kinds of really, really low budget games all across the board. I think he made a few Bible-based ones, and then he shifted over and was like, all right, screw it, I'm just going to make this. And it happened to take off and just kind of like dominated the horror, pansies screaming into the cameras on Twitch scene, and it usurped everything.
I mean, I did that, and the one my oldest son plays is a Garden of Banban. That's the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Monsters going around, you're just trying to run away from them or escape them. And I think it's the same at Five Nights at Freddy's, right? And isn't Freddy the bear mascot?
Yeah. So there's Freddy, Chica the duck, or chicken, actually. I don't remember which one. I'm pretty sure she's a duck. Then you got Bonnie the rabbit, and then you've got Foxy the fox. They're like it's incredibly straightforward, incredibly simple. The first game I think is maybe 5 megabytes. Like, it's a tiny game, but it sold like hotcakes, and it took them forever to finally make a movie, which I'm stunned it took as long as it did.
Yeah, there was no television adaptation of this, was there? It just went straight to a movie in 2023?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, the lore behind everything is incredibly deep, and that's what pulled everybody in, because the first one was kind of a mystery, and then the second one added to the mystery, and so on and so forth, down to the point that you had people that were doing the online investigation of people trying to figure out what the story was and why was so incredible. You had people that were complaining about pixels, literal pixel differences, in order to figure out all of the mystery in this. Like that's how infatuated the audience has become with this franchise.
Wow.
Matt Pat at Game Theory basically made his career doing FNAF videos.
Oh, wow. So how did you feel the changes from the game story were in terms of serving up a film?
I had to go back and watch my review because it's been so long. I described it as a faithful slog because, yeah, on the one hand, it's for what it is, it's accurate enough that most people are going to be like, oh, this is literally Five Nights at Freddy's. Awesome. But on the other hand, if you know the lore and deep dived everything like I did, you're going to want to rip your hair out because you're like, this is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not a worthless watch, but I could understand why a lot of people, myself included, weren't too impressed, because it really does forget to be scary, which is what the whole basis of the game was.
Yeah. Sometimes horror doesn't. Sometimes I don't know. It's hard to I guess it'd be hard to see these things as scary unless you went into the game itself, where you're. And I've only watched videos of FNAF, but it's you have parts in the dark, you have things sneaking up on you, that kind of scary, and I don't know. It'd be interesting how you could play that. Okay, so yeah, this one's Twisted Metal. So the funniest part is the story of how the David Jaff and Scott Campbell came up with this. So they were trying to get a video game franchise that was unique to Sony PlayStation, because this is late 1994 when they were trying to do this, because the first one came out in 1995. They wanted to have a game series that was special to the PlayStation because it was relatively new. It was late 1994 when Sony PS1 came out and debuted. So they were starting, and they got frustrated in the most relatable way because they were stuck in traffic on the way into Los Angeles. But any of us can relate to that going into a major metro area. I can relate to it trying to get into. Yes, I can relate to it trying to get into Philadelphia. I mean, if someone from outside of Pennsylvania is going to Philadelphia, I'm going to tell them, look, take the train to Philadelphia. Traffic sucks. I'm pretty sure it's the same for LA.
Wow.
So they just said, why don't we make a game where where people drive cars around and blow each other up? And that was Twisted Metal.
Huh. Well, that's definitely relatable.
Yeah, it is, because you could just insert major metropolitan area here and describe, wow, traffic sucks getting in there.
Yeah. So I'm only 4 episodes in, and not impressed.
I'm not either. I mean, it's a slog, because they tease you with a little bit of like vehicular combat, but it's mostly trying to play off, the main character played by Anthony Mackie is John Doe. So they're mostly trying to play off the Twisted Metal reboot, because they had Twisted Metal 1 through 4 on the PS1, and then PlayStation 2 was a reboot of the whole thing. And John Doe was part of that reboot. Same with Stone, who race swapped with Thomas Hayden Church. I mean, I think Thomas Hayden Church is great, but Stone is a black guy in Twisted Metal Black, where he shows up.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, Thomas Hayden Church is great, but they switched him up. But John Doe, except for the fact that Anthony Mackie isn't bald, he was very much close to the appearance of John Doe, and Sweet Tooth the Clown is mostly how the appearance that he started with in Twisted Metal Black. In the PS1 ones, he just had a normal clown suit, like a circus clown, usually green or purple, and he had the fire hair. But yeah, this series is a long slog of you waiting for the major vehicular battle on the last season finale. So it's basically 2 plot points, and you've probably seen a little bit of the 2 major plot threads they follow. One with the clown, the other one with John Doe and Quiet, who's an original character to this series. And it's them meeting the characters that they will meet in the end of the season. And all I can say is, from playing the games and watching the series, is that a lot of people will be bored with this series trying to watch it through one season of 8 episodes. A lot of people would. I mean, they've even got episodes where it's filler and they don't do much.
Yeah, a lot of the situations and scenes drive me insane. Like the only thing I've really enjoyed thus far is that it's basically just Deadpool humor, where it's just joke after joke after joke.
Yeah.
Not all, like almost none of them land, but I do appreciate what they're trying to go for, and I really like Evelyn, because I had a Subaru myself, and I've always had a bias towards Subarus.
Oh no, but, that's our family sedan too, or hatchback rather, is a Subaru Impreza. It's worked pretty well for us so far. I mean, we just needed some kind of car with all-wheel drive, because in Pennsylvania it does snow here, and you get muddy in some places.
I gotcha. Yeah, I'm actually really interested by the fact that they race swapped the cop.
Yeah.
That actually adds ammo to an argument I've been looking to make about things, but that's great. Cool.
I mean, the overall story hasn't changed too much about Stone, because he was a security in the mall like he was in the series. It's just that in Twisted Metal Black, he's a black guy. He's a black man, and he's Thomas Hayden Church, obviously, in this streaming series. But it's the same idea as that he messed up being a mall cop, and now he's basically in the Twisted Metal Black, he's a criminal, so he wants his wish granted. And that's the thing that they didn't quite get into in this series. They teased Calypso, the demon who grants wishes, and he runs the Twisted Metal death match. They teased Calypso being there, and Calypso is the guy that the package is going to be picked up from, but they don't show him in full. They're only going to show him in season 2, and he's going to be played by Kerrigan, the Grim Reaper from Bill and Ted. The actor who plays the Grim Reaper in Bill and Ted.
Really?
Yes. And
also, I didn't know it was a demon.
Oh, no. Calypso made a deal with the devil, and one of the jokes in Twisted Metal 2 is that you can actually play as Satan in the game, and if you win as Satan, Satan's only wish to Calypso is, I want to bring you back to hell.
Oh, good lord.
Like, there are these hilariously awful, like, dark humored endings in the Twisted Metal games based on how people want their wishes granted.
Okay.
So don't join Twisted Metal because don't join the vehicular deathmatch because Calypso will never grant your wish well, unless you're Sweet Tooth the Clown, because Sweet Tooth the Clown is basically Deadpool as a clown, and he has some kind of fourth wall breaking awareness.
No.
So what are some questions you have for me about it after season 1?
Oh, well, I'm sure I'll have more if we want to go over it at a later time because I got 6 more to go. But so how accurate is the show to the games, or rather to the source material?
Okay, so the whole idea that technology shut off in the 21st century, that's something made up for the series. I mean, obviously John Doe having to be a delivery man or a milkman, as they call him in the series, that's something that made the plot have a vehicle or a lens to see things through as they introduce John Doe and the clown to various characters, which they'll meet in the end. But no, that losing technology was not a thing of the Twisted Metal series. They're basically supernatural car combat, and they just occur all over the world while life goes on. It's that messed up.
Oh.
In the series, there's no tech apocalypse in the series. That is a point in the Battle Tanks, which is another game of the late 90s and early 2000s, but that wasn't Twisted Metal. But basically, it's supernatural, and almost no one else seems aware that Twisted Metal is going on.
Gotcha. Okay, so that was probably just done to help, like, cut the budget, because I would, unless they had an actual budget to be able to do things, because the CGI in this is not particularly good.
Right, and a lot of these scenes are using, actual cars as CGI for, like, gun flashes. So using actual cars and drivers for stunts, that costs you money as well. So I guess if there's anything that they saved the death match for the last episode of the season, it's just because of, like you said, the budget. I mean, making PlayStation games back in the 90s and early 2000s, that was, that wouldn't cost you as much given how the assets of the time were and how just how much data the game involved back then. But making an actual ice cream truck and using the actual Subaru car and the other cars, which they did some actual stunt driving in the series, that costs money.
Yeah, it's just too bad the budget didn't go towards the writers, because that opening fight in the mall just drove me insane.
Yeah, it was. They're throwing a ton of Easter eggs at you. Like, there was a Twisted Metal game CD that
I did catch that.
Show.
Yeah, and he just wipes it off. He's like, "The hell's that?"
and John treats the steering wheel like a PlayStation controller, and he does the actual up.
Yeah, the code. I did catch that.
But most of what I ever enjoyed about this film was just the clown, because he's just ridiculous. Everything about him is ridiculous.
Yeah, there are so many things that just keep happening to happen. Like There's a small detail that drove me insane, and that's the margarita that got emptied by the bag. Like, that threw me for such a loop. I was like, what are the rules? Like, how does this work?
That reminds me of another PC video game adaptation on streaming, but we can talk about it later.
Oh,
but yeah, it's basically things just happening, and there's Sweet Tooth the Clown, which at least he's ridiculous and he has like fourth wall breaking humor to kind of make me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
But I just felt that some characters kind of got the short end, like Mike and Stu. They're supposed to be the guys who drive a monster truck. They didn't hang around with the clown.
Oh, okay.
And I just felt that it should have been, there's the lady named Raven. It should have been Calypso instead of Raven that sent John Doe to pick up the package. I just would have preferred Calypso, given how iconic Calypso is to Twisted Metal. I wish it was Calypso that sent him to pick up the package in the beginning instead of
Raven. Yeah, I cannot stand watching the desynced audio for Sweet Tooth. Drives me nuts because the actor is obviously talking and the voice will stop and he's still jabbering on, and it's like, well, how did you guys do this early 90s dub crap?
The way they did it was they had like Samoa Joe, which, hearing Samoa Joe, he wouldn't have sounded that bad for the clown, honestly. I mean, I watched interviews with Samoa Joe on the series, like, really? They had to, I mean, I don't dislike Will Arnett. I think his voice works, like in Lego Batman and a few other cases, but I just feel they could have just done Samoa Joe's voice. I mean, he doesn't sound bad for what the clown should have, for the clown voice at all. I mean, he's this bulked wrestling dude, but considering that they had him physically there in costume as the clown, I don't know why they just didn't have his voice for that too. Because I mean, it matches with the kind of body that the clown has, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I don't know. It feels like they were trying to add more. It feels like they were trying to add more names because Anthony Mackie and like he's big because of being the Falcon and Captain America now,
right? But
you're not gonna. Nobody's flocking to the theaters because of Sandman. Like nobody cares. It's like
I'm not sure who was even. I mean, that was Will Arnett. I mean, I felt that Thomas Hayden Church worked as a cop gone bad, like he was in this, but
sure.
I don't know. I'm not sure how many people would remember Sandman or have seen Spider-Man 3 or George of the Jungle.
Oh God, he was in that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was Linus in George of the Jungle.
Wow. Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen that.
I mean, I didn't see it in theaters. I just saw it later on DVD. It's like, wow, it's Linus is the same. And but I think he fit. That was one of the cases where he did the portrayal of a really crooked cop in a lawless wasteland pretty well.
Yeah.
It's just that there was this long slog of you waiting for the actual death match, which is what they call Twisted Metal for. You had to wait till the last episode of the season to see it.
At least the episodes aren't particularly long. Now, they probably just cut them down in half to extend the series to 8 episodes, or to 10 episodes, because otherwise it would be 5, but it doesn't take long to get through it.
No, it doesn't. It's also Peacock, too. I mean, most of it isn't my cup of tea, so to speak. Most of what Peacock from Sony has on streaming isn't my cup of tea.
I'm honestly surprised Peacock is actually still doing anything.
I mean, it's affiliated with Sony Columbia Pictures, but yeah, I doubt. I mean, it's obviously not Netflix level in terms of the audience or the statistics that it has. All right, so this is one we both know a little bit both know for one way or another, Sonic the Hedgehog. So yeah, I know it because I played now they have the original Sonic the Hedgehog games on mobile phones, so I just played around with those because I was bored. And obviously, my children are young enough that they are kind of stuck liking Sonic, so they remind me about it, even if I'm not playing it right now.
Yeah, my queen knows way more about Sonic, and she's quite a bit more opinionated about it. But I do know the two movies at least.
But at least this one has been on television quite a while. It goes back to 1993, 2 years after the first game, and it gets even funnier when you realize that it's Jaleel White or Steve Urkel voicing Sonic.
Wow, really?
Yeah, did I just voice that?
Oh no.
And then there's the whole deal back in 2019, 2020 when they were when they had to re-edit how Sonic appeared to make him look more like the video game because the eyes were too small, too skinny of a body. That's the top one.
Yeah, they did such a heavy redesign for him, and it's good that they did. I don't know why on earth they thought this was a good direction.
I mean, especially when they clearly could have done the actual something closer to the video games. They just had to change the eye size, change his proportions a bit, and he looks like the games.
I mean, it's a shame too, because that's one of the few times that a company has been like properly cyberbullied into actually doing something right, and it's a shame that they shut down because of the change.
The animation studio,
the cost to do it was so the cost to redesign Sonic was so massive that they ended up shutting down, and it's a shame, really.
It is, especially when they've made. Obviously, they've gone to the way of making more than one after that.
Yep.
I guess the one thing I did enjoy is just, I mean, I know this isn't new for Sonic being in the real world with people, because that was actually in the animated television series Sonic X, where he went into our world, obviously animated, not live action. But I just feel there's a lot of things that just never brought it up or never ham-fisted about Thomas and Maddie, the couple that takes Sonic in the film. They didn't say, okay, this is a mixed couple or anything of that sort. They just said, we have a story. They're the couple that took in Sonic, and that's it.
Yep. It's the same thing with it's the same thing with how they, with one line, hinted at Stu and Mike being a couple in Twisted Metal, but they don't harp on any of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's exactly what everyone has been saying for the longest time. We don't actually care so much about the sexuality or the pushing of politics until it's forced. That's when it becomes a problem.
Right, and let the story come first. Everything else will go into place. So, yeah. And apparently they have another Sonic coming. And they're adding, I believe it's Shadow. Yeah.
Yep, they're bringing in the edgiest character ever.
Wasn't there like a robot Sonic or something, or am I not remembering it right?
Yeah, no, there is a Robo Sonic. There's a litany of characters. It's kind of nuts. There's also Silver, the time-traveling hedgehog. Yeah, like Sonic was just like, oh, cool, Dragon Ball's really popular. Let's just take Trunks and put him here.
Oh my! Wait, does he have custom shoes too? It sounds like I'm hearing a description of like a basketball player or a track runner.
Yeah, no. Silver is like this. Well, I think he's like a silver-looking hedgehog, but I'm pretty sure he's got like his own shoes.
Wow.
Yeah, well, they're hardly shoes. They look more like boots, and everything's like a gold bracelet, like actual gold.
Oh my!
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting that they're going to go into Shadow. I mean, obviously it makes sense because Shadow's like the most popular character next to Sonic. But yeah, if they end up bringing in Silver, it's going to get nutty.
Well, I guess with whatever it was actually like 80 million for just. Obviously, it was more if you include the marketing for the first Sonic movie, but it was 80 million for production. 85 million. Sorry. So.
Okay, so call one
like 450 million against 170. That's profitable, so that's why they made sequels after that.
Yeah. Yeah, anything like in excess of 200 million, because I don't remember what Sonic pulled, but the first one,
I know what the production was, but not the marketing for the first one.
Well, as I've described before, you can usually safely, conservatively estimate the production to be 50%, and then attribute that to both marketing and distribution. And right. so generally you can just double it, and that's a really conservative estimate, and that's what the actual cost of the movie is, because you have to make the movie, you have to get the movie to theaters, and you have to
pay for advertising.
So that's what that is. So production, distribution, and marketing, and that's how you get it. Now, again, those are all just safe estimates. It's a rule of thumb. It's not, there are exceptions like I recently learned that the first Quiet Place movie apparently like totally abandoned the cost of certain things like I think it was like their distribution or something. Like it was almost entirely word of mouth, and the movie just took off. So their distribution cost was actually like $5 million or something like that. It was something pathetically small, and then the movie made an extreme amount of money. So it's like this is a massive success.
So the first Quiet Place was that a summer film where they had a couple months to run it in theaters?
I believe so. Real quick on Sonic, it looks like the budget was 90 million. So the movie
was off.
Well, that's okay because the movie is 180 million, which wasn't much higher than what we guessed. And the box office looks to be 320 million. So
so I got my
even if you slash it in half, it was profitable.
Yeah. All right.
And Quiet Place had a budget of 17 million. When was it released? Release dates were March and April, so it was a spring movie.
Okay.
It was a spring movie. It had a production budget of 17 million, so you could probably call it like, let's just call it 20 million, presumably for everything, because it has such a low budget. But it made 341, so that movie was that movie was profitable literally 10 times over.
Hi, Captain. How are you doing today? So this is Captain Sarong. He does a lot of retro PlayStation games. Hope you're doing well, Captain.
Cool. Hello. Ahoy.
So that's crazy. It's crazy how some films managed to get get the budget which they did.
Yeah, well, that's why low budget horror movies are like the undisputed king of
profitability,
trying to make money back.
Right, because you don't take that much of a hurdle to get it, and there's obviously horror fans out there like myself who are going to watch it.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, this massive movie that we just made and just sank the company failed. Quick, release a slew of paranormal activities.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I haven't kept track how many paranormal activities there are.
There's like 7, bro. Like, it's just. And by the way, real quick, it just has something. Something I want to write for at a later time. Just as a quick note, half of the time these horror movies are so low in budget that the entire production budget can be written off for taxes.
Pretty much.
No, literally, like the tax write-off limit goes up to like it's like $15 or $20 million.
Yeah, it's true. That's
so
true.
They just make a movie for free.
Pretty much.
That's wild to me. I anyway.
Well, I mean, the general principle in corporate taxes is that if you have a net gain, that's what's taxable. But if your company as an entity loses money, that's when you don't. But obviously, you don't want to lose money because you can't keep losing money as a company. But right, there have been a couple of movies that have, had discounts depending on what state, such as Texas or somewhere in California as well, because you used that state to film the movie. They're offering to give you a discount to encourage you to make more of your movies in that state.
Yeah, or you can just film in other outside locations like England for other cost reductions.
Right. Yeah. So now, while we're here at the end, we're just going to be talking about upcoming attractions. So we're going to be talking about Castlevania Part 3 next time. After that, we're going to try practicing with how to use this StreamYard setup. So we'll have a week off after we talk about Part 3 of Castlevania. Sure. But other than that, we're going to talk about retro games we recommend. So that should be pretty fun.
Oh, excuse me. Cool. Yeah, I would. I'm looking forward to the Castlevania one. I just got done watching this like massive, what was it, like 6 or 7 hour retrospective on like the whole franchise.
Surely you didn't watch it on one sitting. Well,
oh god, no. No, I had to take that in bites. With my schedule, there was no way. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. He only talked about the video games specifically, so thankfully I could get through quite a bit more with less headache.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I can see 6 hours, but I mean, did they really go that detail on every single game?
Yes.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah, dude spent like 15 or 20 minutes on the first game alone.
Wow.
and he even did other details like Vampire Killer, I believe.
Wow. Oh, the music. Wow, that's pretty good.
No, not the music. What was the other? What was the other? The game? Is it Vampire Killer or
MSX for Vampire Killer for MSX, where you go around finding keys to Simon. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he covered like every one of the games all the way up through to the final Lord's Shadow game.
Lord's Shadow 2. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so maybe I'll take a look in the. If you send me the link, maybe I'll put that video in the description, or I'll save it. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. I'll save it for the next Castlevania episode. But wow, that's pretty.
Yeah,
thorough.
I finished a video game. That's the channel, and I'm sorry, it's 7 hours and 20 minutes. Dude went through the entire series, and he was pretty fair and objective about it. So it was. I really liked it.
Yeah.
He also did Dino Crisis and Parasite Eve too, which really interested me.
Yeah. So, for any of those who are watching now or later, I'm going to have a poll up soon about what topics you want to hear in these streams, and be sure to vote in it. So it'll be in a community post later today. So about what topics we can show. But I mean, this is short. But anything you want to ask me about Twisted Metal or Sonic?
Does Twisted Metal get better?
I'd say the first game is a rough shot or a rough run through is a rough start. It's their experimental. They had tons of cut content using the CD because they actually had actual video of people making the wishes with Calypso. But they didn't end up seeing it in the game. You have to actually go into the disc on your PC to find the video files about about for Twisted Metal, the first one. The second one, it was that and number 3 are essentially the peak of the series before they reboot it, because in Twisted Metal 2 and 3, they actually use motion comics to show the beginning and end of your character story when you choose to play as a character. And number 2, Twisted Metal 2 is when you finally get Mike and Stu, and the difference there is that they're not just following the clown; they have their own monster truck in the tournament.
Okay,
they're 2 teenagers from a Los Angeles high school with a monster truck.
Well, they're not teenagers now.
No, not anymore. Plus, the PS1 was when they actually made, it was before they gave Twisted, the Sweet Tooth the Clown, the shirtless outfit like he has in the series. But Twisted Metal Black was when they actually used video. And then same with Twisted Metal 2012.
Oh, okay.
But I liked Twisted Metal Black because some of the characters got interesting. Like the Sweet Tooth had a cool story of where he got his head is burning because he got a curse or he can't die, but he has to live in pain right before he got executed in the electric chair. But the curse made him survive the electric chair, but now he has his head permanently on fire. And they don't do it in the Twisted Metal series until the end, where the, Sweet Tooth soaks his head in lighter fluid and he asks Stu to light it up with the lighter.
Okay. I was wondering how they're gonna explain that one.
Well, yeah, because he soaked his head in lighter fluid and had Stu light it. But the big disappointment is that it take all these episodes to really do the death match with cars.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
which they will get to.
I mean, if they've got Calypso in the season 2, which they teased with Sweet Tooth, so spoiler alert, he isn't dead, which is why I also consider him to be Deadpool, because he doesn't seem to die no matter what happens to him, even in the games. I mean, he gets car crashes, bullets, stabbed in the eye. He doesn't seem to die from any of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no one seems to die in this series so far, unless their name is not attached to the higher billing, because that first fight in the mall, he was dead. I don't know how you miss with a 50 cal mounted.
I bet it's because John was entering the invincibility code on his PlayStation controller steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably why.
So goofy.
It is, but no, it's better as a video game. Like, it was the perfect people liked it for just multiplayer, car versus car. Same with Battle Tanks, which I'd want to with Battle Tanks for N64, I'd want to try to figure a way to net play with somebody on that someday.
I'm sure there's a way.
Yeah, there's got to be. Maybe if they finally decide to put Battle Tanks on the Switch store and use the Switch controller instead of the N64 one.
You got to do it with the 64, the goofy ass controller.
Yeah, because Battle Tanks is you drive tanks, so you're obviously when you're controlling a tank, you got to rotate the turret and move the tank, and it gets a little annoying with N64 controls, but you kind of get used to it after a while. But that was where they got the whole idea of the technology apocalypse, where a technology apocalypse is the setting for how the game is so ridiculous with tanks. That wasn't really a Twisted Metal thing. I mean, Twisted Metal is something that goes on in the real world, and people are like, what's going on? Why is it? And it gets worse because there's actual pedestrians that you could run over, whether by accident or they're just in your way, when you're doing the deathmatch levels.
that's probably part of it.
But yeah. Either way, I hope everyone who is watching and who has enjoyed watching this so far will enjoy it. And we will see you next week with episode 3 of Castlevania. So, of our Castlevania series. And just to let everyone know, the episodes of our live streams are going to be up on Rumble. I have somewhat of a delay because they have to process it first. Either way, anything else to say, Albeleo, before we hit the road?
Well, look forward to a stream on Friday night. I'll be continuing Fallout, and I will have a new video. If not at 3, it'll probably be a little later, but I will be doing a new video as well for Friday.
I'm looking forward to it. And I'll be streaming earlier on Friday. I'll be streaming Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. I'm going to try and beat that game. So I'm unofficially doing Legend of Zelda in July. It's a funny thing that myself and another channel called Captain N decided to do for the fun of it, playing Legend of Zelda games in the month of July. So I'll have his link in the description.
Cool.
Either way, hope you're all having a wonderful time, and until we meet again, farewell.
Yeah, have a good day, everybody.
All right, here we are. We are on this new episode of Whatever Happened to the Game. But this time we're going to look into the future a bit. And I got this idea from coming across an episode of David Stewart, or David V. Stewart. He's fantasy author. He writes his thoughts about sci-fi and video games on YouTube. So I'll put a link to his channel in the description. But I thought, hey, since the Nintendo Switch, whatever comes after the Nintendo Switch isn't out now, might as well make something about my speculation and other speculations about it before it officially gets released. So then we can come back to it and see how well it aged. So today's episode is whatever will happen after the Nintendo Switch. And coming with us from Illinois is Albeleo. Welcome.
Hello. How you doing, buddy?
Great. So we both are in there with the Nintendo to a degree. I personally got a Nintendo Switch recently, so I'm probably a little late to the party on getting a Nintendo Switch. And you can see the previous episode of this podcast, Whatever Happened to Halo, and we're going to be continuing that with later Halo. But I just thought, hey, take a look at the Switch before it actually gets released for the next generation. So, all right. I clicked that a little early. So, Nintendo DS. So, I remember that. Apparently, it's one of the most highest selling consoles ever, and only the PlayStation 2 exceeds this console. 154.02 million. So, yeah, I got that off. I didn't say a million. A lot of Nintendo consoles sold over 100 million, with a few disappointments that they considered flops. But the Nintendo DS by far was not one of them. So far, I've got a Nintendo DS, and which I got. It was old, but it still works great. The games, it plays both Nintendo DS and Game Boy Advance games on the same thing. But it's a great gimmick. Because it connects to the internet, so you can multiplayer by every person having their own Nintendo DS. Which I think is a great way. It's also a precursor to what would happen with the Switch eventually. Anything else you liked about the DS? Or
I did like very few games, only because I only got to play a few games, like Portrait of Ruin, for example.
Yeah, that was the first multiplayer Castlevania one, which you could multiplayer over the Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
That and the Mario Kart DS as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. I just never really got into the DS. Not that I didn't want to. Metroid Prime Hunters was the other one I really wanted, but same thing, just never really got around to it. Got too busy with things.
Yeah, I was quite busy myself, which is why I was actually at the time I was mainly playing it off, but when I had my own house, my own family, I got the DS because my kids could play it, I could play it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got they had Pokemon Game Boy Color games on sale, so I got those for the DS, and I also got Mario 64 DS, Mario Kart DS, and all 3 Nintendo DS Castlevania games for that.
Nice.
Yes, but it's a great gimmick that you can connect to the internet, and every because hypothetically you could sell multiple DSs for each house, just so that people could do multiplayer with all the DS units.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way I can see it being the second highest behind the PlayStation 2, is just because the gimmick is you have to get multiple DSs to play multiplayer online.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the Castlevania collections, I basically wouldn't have any actual reason to care at all for the Switch at this point. And so to see that they're bringing the DS games in that collection, or have brought, I should say,
yeah,
it makes me so happy.
Yeah, that and I've actually gone to the Nintendo Switch store, and I'll show it at the end, the new games that are coming to the Switch store. But I basically tried Perfect Dark on the Nintendo Switch, and it's great.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, it's the two joystick system for the Switch. It's basically kind of similar to how you played Halo for playing Perfect Dark.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great because when I'm playing Perfect Dark, I can easily aim with one thumb and move with the other, which makes it great for just running by people and firing while I run.
Well, that's good because, man, trying to having the analog stick and then having 4 directional buttons with the C buttons.
Yeah, no, it was
difficult.
It was a pain, but that's also why I wish they eventually, if they don't have copyright issues for Nintendo, they put the Army Men 3D or Battle Tanks on the Switch store eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's the Nintendo Wii. Nintendo Wii was great too. It was codenamed Revolution before they released it on November 2006. And hi, Shadow Master. How are you doing?
Hey, Shadow. How you doing, buddy?
So, Nintendo Wii was, I enjoy it. Even though it was technically my wife's that I inherited, I got Twilight Princess and a number of other GameCube games for the Wii, and they still work. Still play now.
I never actually got all the hatred for the Wii. Like this is something I always vehemently disagreed with. Yahtzee.
Well, I got sucked into the Wiimote gimmick from the start. I wanted to play a game where I swing the remote control for the sword in a Legend of Zelda game, and I got that with the Twilight Princess.
Yeah, and I thought it was fine. Like, I get that it's a pain to get used to, but my goodness, the control scheme. Like, I have the Prime Trilogy collection on the Wii, and those controls are absolutely peak for Metroid, and I will never understand why people are like, oh, the Wii motion sucks.
I only have the GameCube for a Metroid Prime, but don't you use the nunchuck and Wiimote for the Metroid games that way?
Correct. Correct. Yeah, they took Prime 3's control scheme and applied it to 1 and 2, and it actually made the game like super easy because the game had such limited control options, and now
Right.
it's actually a breeze. Like it's actually a negative because it's a positive. It's kind of goofy.
That and you just take the Wiimote and turn it sideways for a lot of games too. I turn it sideways to play Super Smash Brothers Brawl on the Wii, and as well as the Retro Game Store, which is sadly lost, and I hope the Switch store does not get lost. We'll talk more about that later. Where you just, it'd be great because there's a reason why Steam is still around, and it has outlasted 2 of my PCs at home because Steam keeps going and it saves your games for years. More or less. So Nintendo Wii. Now we're going to go to the part where Nintendo was really disappointed. So yeah, it was released on November 18th, 2012, and you can obviously see how it inspired the later Switch controller right here with the display screen and the controls. But you could also use the older Wii control for it if you wanted to. You can also use the Wiimote or Nunchuck for it. But it's essentially a tablet controller, but you can see where it goes into the Switch.
The Wii U was another one of those systems where I was like, this is fine. Like yeah, they have the tablet gimmick, but the tablet was fine.
Well, the tablet was also technically in the DS. You have the lower screen display plus the main screen display, and I have a hard time showing live streaming it when you figured out how to live stream with the display for Nintendo DS games, haven't you?
Outside of
the aspect ratio is weird, but I have older live streams where I did Order of Ecclesia, and I had to like set up my own display for that easily. It's kind of weird because it's when you're trying to live stream it, you have to use both the lower display and the upper main display in the same one. So I had to Photoshop the backgrounds to fix that aspect ratio. Yeah, I actually I got to tried out the demo for the Wii U for Human Revolution, and they had another Super Smash Brothers on Wii U. Shadow. They were pretty interesting. It was an unfortunate day at Nintendo, as you can see here.
Splatoon was such a fun little game. I actually ran a tournament of it. It was interesting.
Yeah,
I thought it was so much more interesting than a lot of the games nowadays, especially Call of Duty.
What's Splatoon exactly?
So it's like a Nintendo version of paintball. Like you're a bunch of inklings that can look like that look like humans.
So you're fighting paintball.
It's sort of actually. Hold on. It's more like it's like a PvP version of Mario Sunshine. I think that's the better way to put it.
Nintendo did do a paintball game, but that was, as I read, they actually did a paintball game way back in for NES in the late 80s called Gotcha, and it's paintballing. You try to get the other person's flag.
Oh, gotcha.
You have to shoot paintballs at them first before they get you.
Yeah, no. So the Mario Sunshine comparison I think is better. So you're basically running around with your equivalent of the water gun on your back.
Yeah.
And you're spraying paint everywhere, and or ink. You're trying to spray ink all over the place, and you can dive into the ink like in squid form, and then swim around and pop up out of it. And you're basically spraying things around like the paint from Mario Sunshine.
Right.
And it's just a PvP game where you knock each other out and everything.
So you get sprayed blue or red or something.
Yeah, blue, red, purple, yellow. There were all kinds of colors. There were like Splatoon actually has like an amateur PvP scene. It's kind of goofy.
That sounds good. It's a shame because somehow it only sold 13.56 million consoles, and That's a letdown compared to how the Wii sold over 101.63 million. Nintendo DS sold 154.02 million. Also, the Nintendo GameCube and 64 also sold over 100 million each. So it was a big letdown for Nintendo, unfortunately.
It also wasn't all that different from the Wii. It basically had the same hardware, and
Yeah,
I think a lot of people were hoping that it would come back with the mature games like the Switch did, but it never did.
Yeah, it didn't quite get to that point. So I can't believe this. Well, being a recent purchaser of a Switch, I can't believe it's been 7 years since they released the Switch.
Yeah, how are those gray hairs growing?
I have some on the side of my head for a long time. 7 years. But I don't regret it because the Switch store has plenty of older games and it's been growing, as I'll show some of the newer ones they released at the end of this. But yes, it's the great thing is that the Switch has the online store. The Switch has the online store, and it has so many retro games. How many retro games have you tried on the Switch store so far?
Not too many because I have the retro games that I want. So,
Right.
like I haven't my Switch has collected more dust than it has data at this point.
Oh my, mine's
Like
got I can't preserve mine because I've got my fingerprints all over it.
Oh yeah, no, this thing, I my lady, my queen got me, she got me Mega Man, wait, what is it, 11, I think? Yeah, I think it's 11. And a while ago, I got Metroid Dread, and those are basically the only two games I've actually sat down and played through. Well, that's not true. There are a bunch of other games that are older, like Hyrule Warriors, the Age of Calamity, which I hoard out for some reason, and a couple other here and there, and I just can't bring myself to complete Tears of the Kingdom because I just it's so terrible. This is like this thing is basically just collected dust, and I don't see why people. I do see why people want the Switch 2 because they're dying for something different.
Yeah, I mean they are. I mean I've got obviously not the light Switch Lite, which is only portable. I've got the regular Switch, which is both TV hookup and portable. It's a hybrid console. But so far, I mean, the main thing I've been doing is playing the older games because they have N64 and it even has Sega Genesis. And I hope that if the Switch store continues, that they go into getting Sega Dreamcast if they can. Because I've been playing Sonic Bloodlines on the Sega, on the Sega Genesis emulation for the Switch store, and the other one was playing Perfect Dark using the two joysticks because, as I said before, it's easier than with the Nintendo 64 using the Switch controls to play that game. So I've been sucked into it for the new kind of experience that the Switch controller offers me compared to the N64 for some of these, and I hope that games like Battle Tanks, where the two joystick configuration would help a lot when you're driving a tank.
Would be nice.
Yeah, it would be.
Also, real quick, congrats on 900 subs, by the way. Happened to catch that a little bit ago.
Yeah, I've been trying to get this set up and work on another video, but yeah, I did reach 900 recently, and that's true.
You're almost there.
Thank you. Almost
there.
Almost there. Thanks. So yeah, so if there isn't much more, we're going to talk about what we expect because there was a leak in Indie 100 magazine, and I shared this with you early this week. So this Indie 100 got a leak from someone close to Nintendo that the Switch 2 in quotation marks, because I'm not sure if it's a code name like they did for Revolution for Nintendo Wii or Box for GameCube, is what's going out.
Mm-hmm.
And they said it would be Pokemon Legends would be the first game. And I have the link right here to the magazine article if you want to, everyone else wants to read it too. And again, Switch 2, the name could be a code name. Yeah, Shadow Master, I would like to have Nintendo DS games on the Switch store. And that's why, like I said before, I hope Nintendo takes notes from how Steam is successful and just says, okay, we'll keep our Nintendo Switch store compatible with later consoles because it works.
The one thing, and I do wish that Nintendo would make the adjustment, but I don't think they will. And this could just be that I don't know entirely, but they have not, like, I know they have like a Nintendo account, and when you purchase a game, it goes to that account and everything. But I'm pretty sure Nintendo still uses the same sort of rental license agreement as Steam does. Is that true? Do you know that?
Yes, they still have the same agreement in terms of what's in your library that Steam does.
I wish they had gone through and when something was purchased online, like, or not online, but through their official account on the website or something, that it went to your Nintendo account and you owned the game digitally instead of rented it out. If they had done that and continued this online from the Wii to the Wii U and through the Switch, they would be dominating right now, because then people would be getting newer tech with more space, still having all of the retro games without having to purchase them again, and they would have an incredibly, like, their fan base wants this.
That was a big shortcoming with Nintendo Wii, is that if you got games on the Nintendo Wii store for the first Nintendo Wii and for the Wii U, once that went to the Switch, you lost those games. You had to
exactly.
get them all over again. And that's what I hope, is that I hope that, like Steam, they just keep the same store going from console to console. And that they have some, and if they are worried about losing that because people don't buy new games, they could have some games that are cartridge or Nintendo exclusive.
Exactly. Like, just make it a cumulative bank, but give digital access and ownership to those who purchase it instead of trying to go through. And hell, even if you didn't want to go through the complexity of trying to, like, ensure, hey, do you have this serial number on the back of your physical cartridge kind of thing, right?
Right.
I would have liked to see them do something like that, but I know they're not going to. It's just it's so frustrating, because they could have easily smashed Steam with this, especially after the big reveal that Steam doesn't Steam doesn't let you actually own any of your games.
Right.
Not that hasn't been known for a while by most gamers,
right.
But it's like, it's a big blow for a lot of people, because they're like, wait, I don't own this? It's like, yes, duh.
Right.
Physical media matters.
That's why I like GOG, because I can back up the games, the installer files, and those work on an external. You can take them off an external hard drive and install them for GOG, anyways.
Gotcha.
But yeah, the thing is, I hope they just don't let the store go out the way it did with the Wii U. Yes, Shadow, exactly. And yes, I don't remember exactly what the code name was for Switch when it was in development, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it had a code name. Actually, want to look that up, Albeleo? Let's see if there's a code name for Switch.
For the first Switch, correct?
Right. The Switch had a code name before release. Thank you. And yeah, Shadow, I'm hoping they have DS and 3DS games on the Switch store. And I hope they continue the Switch store into the Switch 2, for that matter.
NX.
NX, okay. Okay. That's interesting. So yeah, you're right, Shadow. It's NX, but
yeah, that was what it was.
NX. So as I said before, I really hope that they shop goes on, and like
God, 2015. Jesus, this thing's almost 10 years old.
Yeah, it is. They've kept the same one, but the crazy thing is that I haven't actually put this in the slides, but the Nintendo Switch has outsold both the newest Xbox and newest PlayStation at the same time.
Oh yeah. That's because of all of the things Nintendo did, Nintendo made the right choice when they decided not to compete in unnecessary technology and stayed focused on making games.
Oh yeah, but I mean the hybrid, which is if it's not the Switch Lite, the hybrid idea is great. I mean the red and blue Switch I've got, I can plug it into my TV, play it off there, or play it on the go.
Mm-hmm.
It works. And I mean, I could do it technically, but for Xbox, you have to pay for a cloud subscription, which is ridiculous. Because think about it, $15 a month, and add that up for 12 months. You might as well have been buying those Xbox games that whole year if you add it up. And it isn't even all the Xbox.
Dude, I played WoW for way longer than I ever should have. I know that cost.
But I'm just saying, it's more cost effective if you actually bought the games for Xbox or PlayStation. Yeah, but I do think the hybrid idea works, but my bias here, and really bleeds into this, is that I recently got the Nintendo Switch now, and allegedly they're going to change it out next year. But I'll still love it, but I was a little late to the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope that they take advantage of the new controller system and get, as long as there's no copyright issues, get Sega Dreamcast and get more of the N64 games that the controllers were terrible for the N64, using the better Switch controller configuration.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm telling you, if you ever go to the Switch store and get Perfect Dark on the Switch, it's better with the dual joystick controls.
I'll definitely have to try it. I also need the time to try it, because
yeah, well, I'll be taking time off near the end because it's December and holidays. But before we talk about Vampire Hunter D, which they've talked about, that's the movie my audience wants to get reviewed.
Ooh, absolutely. Love Vampire Hunter D.
So what are your?
I've never read the manga or anything, but I love those movies.
Oh yeah, they have the manga. I keep saying comics for them because I think of them that way. But yeah, it's manga for Vampire Hunter D on Amazon right now.
Mm-hmm.
But what are some what you expect from the quote unquote Switch 2?
What I imagine Nintendo is gonna do is they're gonna try to improve the performance in such a minimal way that it's hardly gonna make much. It's hardly gonna feel any different. I think they're gonna try to use it as a way to make a tad bit more money, because I feel like it's not performing as well as it could.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me, because we're comparing it to modern day numbers. We're not looking at like Wii and PS2 numbers, but I don't know the numbers. I could just be completely
right
wrong here.
I mean, it's normal for a Nintendo console in the late 90s and early 2000s to sell over 100 million for that console.
Yeah. And in terms of games, what I think they're gonna try to do is, well, at least from what I've done research wise, I think they're gonna try to do a ton of remasters to launch the system, which will delay the release of the actual games that they're hoping to release later in the year.
Right. Do you think there's going to be overlap? Because there was some overlaps with the Wii and the GameCube. But as I found out that they had Twilight Princess on both the GameCube and the Wii. Although I greatly prefer the reason why I got the game Twilight Princess is for the Wii version. But I do feel there's some games are going to overlap. Like
I would imagine there's going to be cross-gen. Like how could there not be?
I'm just trying to think what there could
Prime
be.
4, I think, is supposed to be cross-gen.
So it's going to be both Switch and Switch 2, maybe?
I believe so.
Yeah. I'm suspecting there's going to be at least 2 Mario games that will be cross-gen.
Mhm.
At least 2 Marios, because there's always the Mario, side-scrolling. They're not necessarily side-scrolling, but the Mario games where you're playing as Mario Luigi, and you have the other Mario Kart game. And I'm willing to, now we'll see how well this ages, but I'm willing to bet there's going to be at least 1 Mario Adventure game and 1 Mario Kart game that will be crossed over between Switch and Switch 2.
Would be interesting. As for everything else, I just don't know. Like, there's
other games you hope that end up on the Switch store? Because I'm hoping that 3DO games, that there's no copyright, the 3DO games that were on Nintendo make it.
Well, first off, I hope they share the same. I hope they share the same store. That's the first thing. I would hate to have to pay, 15 or 5 or whatever. I think it's 5, like per month in order to get access to it. It's like I hope they don't do that.
Right.
And then I
hope it stays. I mean, I hope it's the same store for Switch 2 as it is for Switch.
Mm-hmm.
It was a major loss. Wii and DS once shut down.
Yeah, I hope they see the light on that suggestion I made earlier of like just having the same setup, the same library that people can just own things from. And then I don't know, like the only thing I'm hoping for is that 3D collection of Castlevania comes out at this point.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Because like they've already gone through and dropped like all of the others. It's like I also think that they're going to do something else Castlevania related. I don't think it relates to Nocturne. I think there might be a Castlevania game in the works in the next couple of years.
There's no coincidence that they timed the remaster release with the original series, and not long after season 1 of Nocturne, they had the Dominus collection and the Advanced collection.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wonder. So I would like if they re-released Castlevania 64, or at least they had it in the Switch store. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. I'll see because my when I showed the new games in the Switch store, which will be coming up a little after this, I was only doing it as of last Saturday when I was doing the slides. So it could be changed. I could just check out the Switch store and see what's new. But these are the newest games that enter the Switch store. F-Zero. I haven't played the F-Zero, funny enough. Maybe I should. That's where Captain Falcon comes from. Captain Falcon from Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
Blast Core, that must be an earlier Nintendo 64.
Oh, no kidding. Legends.
Yeah. It's there.
I'm glad to see Metroid 2 as well.
Game, Metroid 2, Dr. Mario, Jet Force Gemini. Yeah. Alone in the Dark. I think it's related to a PC or Xbox game, Alone in the Dark, maybe.
Correct. And a really, really terrible UA Bowl film.
Alone in the Dark. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Who? Christian Slater.
Okay. Yeah, now I remember.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that was rough.
Mario 64. I think I played part of Jet Force Gemini, and it was the third person where you're a dog, or a guy, a man or a woman. You're fighting ants. Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna go look at I'm gonna put the Switch store on the stream so we can take a look at what they have there.
Yeah, sure.
That should be pretty fun.
And yeah, shout out poor Xbox and PlayStation, because it's definitely something that drives me insane, is the constant run towards irrelevance. It's like, hey, look, we made more and more advanced technologies. Our games look more and more realistic. Congrats. Now where's the game?
Yeah. And they don't even, well, okay, so here it is. It hasn't changed too much. F-Zero Racing.
Okay.
It's like these are, this is alphabetical order, so I didn't do it. I didn't present it in the order of release.
Sure, that's fine.
How about, what do you want to look at? Let's try. Let's see, Nintendo. What new NES games do they have? Game Boy, Nintendo 60. How about Game Boy Advance? Let's see what's new for that one.
Sure.
Destiny 2, no Starfire. Destiny 2, no Starfire 2. I don't know.
It's also interesting how many of the Japanese exclusive games that get released. That was always something that kind of confused me, because it's like I can't read Japanese, so it's like why release it international without a translation?
Right. That's why I was happy when they did Final Fantasy 5 and 6 finally. When they skipped that in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they called 6 3. Mario Brothers. Mario Advance. Mario Brothers. Okay. That's confusing. Mario Advance 4.
Oh yeah. It's just an updated version of Mario 3, but it's on the Advance, and it was also like the fourth game on the Advance.
Okay.
Yeah, if there is one thing Japan sucks at, it's naming.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you've ever actually gone through and looked at the name, like the actual like Japanese names for Pokemon. It is not Squirtle. It's not Squirtle. It's something stupid like Water Turtle or some crap, and then it's like Blastoise.
World Tail, right? I think so. I think
basically, it's like all their names are like literal. It's like Pikachu is like Lightning Mouse or something like that. Like
funny. In Mega Man, it gets funny too, because you'll probably remember in the first Mega Man X, there's Boom Kawanger, but in Japanese, you're calling him a cockroach.
Oh, that like sucks all the power out of him.
Yes, just don't know what his name is in Japanese. But he's the guy you get the boomerang from.
That's funny.
So what's new on Nintendo 64? Blast Corps, Banjo-Kazooie, Dr. Mario, GoldenEye, Mario Party 2, Mario Golf. I missed that one somehow. Pokemon.
Probably not missing too much.
Right. Star Fox 64. I did not miss that one though. Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, Yoshi's Story, Wave Race.
I actually just got a hold of Turok 2. There was at the place my brother and I are refurbishing. We found a little plastic bin that had I want to say it was like 15 64 games, and Turok 2 was in it. I was like, oh, sweet.
Well,
the original black cartridge and all.
I hope that store runs well for you. Pilot Wings. Makes me curious. Yes, Perfect Dark. I've been playing that one. He's in the Switch controls. It's pretty good. It's pretty well. Jet Force Gemini. I'm tempted to try that one, dual with the Switch controls as well. So
GoldenEye.
Yep.
God, is that game hard at times?
Yeah, it is. Especially when you have to like run and shoot while you go.
Oh yeah. It's absurd at times. You can make a Japanese account and attach it to the US Switch. Oh, really? The Switch is not region locked, and you can avoid Nintendo of America censorship. Oh, wow! No kidding.
Shadow, you're the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Shadow.
So it's the same. That's actually, if that's the case, that's a good thing for Nintendo Switch. They should keep, not having it the same regardless of region.
Mm-hmm.
What is next? So next is we're going to talk what's coming up next. Next week is whatever happened to Halo 2. So yes, I want to thank my brother for his Xbox, so I was able to record Halo 2 footage.
Oh, sweet.
And 2025 is whatever happened to the films, and that will start with Vampire Hunter D. Bloodlust.
Oh, going right into the good one. Should say the better one. The first one's good too.
Right. And here we are at the end. I hope you all had a wonderful time as we were talking about we hope happened with the Nintendo Switch. And see you next time, same channel. Anything else you want to add?
Well, thank you as always. I'm currently rushing through trying to get my damn Joker review out.
Okay, I won't bother you too much, and I'm looking forward to the interview from you as well.
Yeah, we got to set up a time for that, and I got to figure out a couple more things to put on that bingo card.
It could work pretty easily. I think it would work easier if we did it around this similar time as this. You host it and record it, and you could edit it from there.
Yeah, sure.
All right. See you later, Shadow. And
oh, hey, Brian. Bye, Brian.
Hi, Brian. It's okay. We have some extra minutes, but Nintendo Switch 2 was leaked by Indie 100 magazine. I had the link in an earlier slide. Allegedly, it's going to release in March of 2025.
Yeah, although I did happen to catch that a couple people are thinking maybe like this same time next year, so October, November.
Maybe. I mean, I'll take what Indie 100 magazine says with a pinch of salt. But
oh yeah, absolutely.
The pressure still is on for Nintendo, and we're going to take a look at this. We're going to take a look back at this and see how much of what we expected came to fruition.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not too late. We covered most of what we wanted to here, what we expected from Nintendo Switch 2. But thanks for stopping by, Brian.
Yeah, sorry. You can obviously just rewatch the whole thing and hear our thoughts on it, of course. Also, just to add, I will be continuing Fallout tomorrow as well, so that's in the cards too. So hopefully I can get through that, and then after that, Order of Ecclesia.
Right. I'll be playing Curse of Darkness later today, starting at 1:30 Eastern time in Philadelphia. So.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So thank you for everyone who visited, and we'll see you next time with whatever happened to Halo 2, and hopefully later we'll talk about whatever happened to the Halo movies. So that's our predicted part. And stay tuned with Albeleo. He'll be interviewing myself and possibly others about what we expect for Castlevania Nocturne.
Yeah, because that's coming back.
Right. It's going to be a premiere though, so it'll be a little different. You could probably get it up at a time.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for coming, guys. Sorry for it cutting short here, Brian, but again, just go ahead and watch the whole thing.
All right. See you later, and good night.
Yep. Have a good day, everybody. See you tomorrow.
So as this volume draws to a close, I want to welcome you and thank you for stopping by to give a little visit to the podcast of Whatever Happened to the Game. And hopefully you enjoyed and had a nice time visiting here this evening on Thursday night. And I hope you have a nice time. In the meantime, there are links to both myself, my own channel, and to Albeleo's channel, who is a guest on these episodes of the series. And I want to wish you a wonderful evening. And you can stop by the channel and related links in the description. Get some Vampires Rule merchandise, or you can just check out some jokes I have every now and then on Instagram. It should be pretty fun. In the meantime, Have a wonderful evening, and until we meet again, farewell.